maybe it's live now. Refresh on my YouTube page. Oh, now it is live. Figured it out. There's a setting you have to turn on. Apparently, I did not have it turned on. So now we're testing the live stream. See, this is why I tested it before I tried it. So I didn't get a video made this week. I did actually get a video made, but that is not why I am doing the live stream. Hey, Rebecca. So the reason why I'm doing the live stream is because all the audio on my video that I recorded, all the audio is not really great because there is, I guess I bumped up the mic port on the camera and it didn't record any of the audio. I'm not really sure how restream really works. I'm trying to figure it out. Hey, Lisa, how are you doing? So I have my laptop going here so I can, I was trying to test the restream app, and it looks like Dale's in here now. But I was trying to figure out how the whole restream works. It's a lot different than StreamYard was. The StreamYard app, I did try to go to it first because I didn't know everybody switched from StreamYard, but I seen on Dale and Lisa's. Yeah, it's really easy, Dale. Whenever you mess with it, this is the first time I just created the account and everything yesterday, because I was going to do it yesterday, but I couldn't make it go live. But I figured it out today. You would think it would be a little easier to do that part. Hey, Phil from Peterson Farms of Nashville. Ava is not here right now. Ava and her mom and Emma went to they went to a walk around the lake in Stillwater. I think they're getting groceries and everything. Oh, well, okay. I guess Ava is in here on her YouTube channel. So yeah, just kind of this time testing out Restream, seeing how it all works out. I like how it has the chat over here on the side of the screen, like right here. If I'm pointing at it right, because of not being able to see it on, like, because I'm using my phone to do the live stream. So funny thing is so I've been trying to get it to go live for like 5 or 10 minutes, and it did not work out really well. Can everybody hear me okay? Is the audio decent? Emma's hello Emma. Emma is on here too with her YouTube channel. So I do want to do a live stream, and I was actually going to call you, Dale, and ask you about doing a live stream on something. I don't want to kind of give it away. Be like a not necessarily a podcast, but it's kind of like that kind of format. Not several of them, just one. Loud and clear. Well, that's good. For the main thing is I have an I so I have an idea about doing a live stream about I can't give it away. So I'll text you later, Dale, and see you would be great for it based on what you do for a living outside of YouTube. I mean, and I'm not saying that anyone else wouldn't be, but it's kind of like your craft, if you will. So I think it would be pretty interesting. Or call. Yeah. See there you go. There's a huge delay, which is kind of odd because it still has me talking over here on about what I was talking about before. It's been a while since I did a live stream, so it's kind of there's a lot of pauses because I'm having to think about what I'm saying. I really didn't necessarily plan it. That's right. It's actually a really good topic. I promise it's a really good topic. Um, yeah, I don't. I think I would plan for 2 hours with questions. Um, because it's gonna get pretty in depth. About 20 seconds or so. Well, I mean, questions for me to ask you, and you could also ask me because I deal with. I don't necessarily deal with it because I don't do that for a living. So not teach. It's the yeah. So how's everybody's day going? I think I've said hello to everybody. Just looking through the chat real quick, making sure I didn't miss anything. So I do have a question about this, Dale. How do you add a link to or add somebody to it to be able to which I guess I can talk to you about that on the phone. So if I wanted to send a link for you to be able to get onto, because I don't know if I even seen a link anywhere. Oh, add somebody. There it is. Copy the link. It's really close to how StreamYard works. Let's go back to here because the comments pop up quite a bit faster on YouTube than they do to the StreamYard. Hmm. So I just put out a bale of hay for the cows and horses. A friend of mine, we were just talking about the rising price of. So a really good friend of mine just took a cow calf pair to the sale barn last Monday, and the cow was 7 years old and the calf was at weaning age, and he got $4,200 for it. And well, do you have time to pop up in the chat now? But he bought $4,200 for the cow calf pair. They separated them, but it's still $4,200 for a cow and a calf. Is that not crazy? And what I keep hearing from a lot of my USDA buddies is that the cattle prices are probably going to go higher by the end of April. Oh, nope. Nope, don't want to do that. Oh, that is how you do it. Hmm. It's almost identical to StreamYard. But I'm glad I did it on my phone, so then I could play around with it on the computer. Eggs in the grocery store just hit about an hour ago was $11 a dozen. Holy cow. Yeah. So if you look today's time versus the Great Depression, it's more expensive today to live than it was during the Great Depression. If you look at the pricing of automobiles and homes, it's more expensive today. It's crazy. People used to spend more on food than they did housing, and now we spend more on housing than we do food, which it's greatly approaching the other way, just based on how much everything cost. I knew if I sat here long enough, I would have something to talk about. You could ask my kids. I I can talk to a T-post as long as it doesn't run away from me. I can always find something. Oh, so then I guess you just click it, and then there's Dale.
Yep.
How's
What's
it
up?
going, Dale?
Oh, it's a going. How about
Oh,
you? Hello?
it's going good. Can you hear me?
Yep, I can. So
That
when you're
movement.
a guest on here like this, now
Yeah,
the chat populates from the bottom and goes up. If you
yeah.
look on it on your screen, it populates from the top and goes down. Like the older the messages, they go down. That's the way it is when you're a guest in here. So the new messages come in on the top.
I don't know how I did that. I clicked a button and it moved it
Yep,
on the messages.
you turned off the chat. If you turn back
Well,
on the chat,
how do
it'll
you
put
do that? I don't even know how I did it to begin with.
there's a toggle at the top of the chat. There's a few
Oh, overlay. Oh, there
Yep,
it is.
overlay. So there's a few quirks in there. Hi Ava.
Well,
Um so like if you want to co-stream, you have to go ahead and send the link ahead of time, email it or text it to the person. They have to go in there and send it to their channel or accept that it can be, their channel is going to stream
right.
before you start the live. So that's different than, like with StreamYard, you can put up the link like that. And if you are allowing co streaming, they could pop in and go, oh, yeah, I want to stream this to my audience. That's not an option with this. It has to be ahead of time.
Well, see, I think I quit streaming before the co-streaming.
Co streaming thing. Co
Yeah,
streaming is good because the thing with co streaming, there's a few things about it I don't like. For one, if somebody on StreamYard comes in on your channel and say I was co-streaming the live on my channel, the people in my live can only see the chat in mine. The people in yours don't see the chat in mine. You
with
see what I'm saying?
with restream.
But with Restream, if you put that up there on the screen, they see
Yeah.
all the chat.
Oh,
Like that.
well,
With
then you can actually
StreamYard,
see who. then you can actually see who all's here
You can
doing it
see
this way.
who's chatting. Now, people are gonna say, "Well, I don't have them in my chat," when they see them up there on the screen, and you're gonna be like, "That's because they're not in this channel,"
Right.
you know. That part. There's other things I don't like. There's no giveaway tool in this one, like a picker, hashtag picker. There's not a hashtag picker for Restream, so you got to
Well, so
get.
the way that I was doing it before is I was just going to a separate website and then share it in the screen. Is those that's probably the way that you'd have to do it here rather
You
than
would have to do it
take it.
that way in here. It's not integrated like StreamYard is.
Mm.
So that's one thing. But no, what are we doing? We went to church. We went to the grocery store. And funny story about the eggs being $11. They were $11.26 a dozen. And as before we're getting to the eggs, there's this couple walking past the eggs. And as they walk past us, the woman says, "That is ridiculous. That's over $1 an egg." No, it's not.
Well, sometimes math gets people.
I'm like, if it was $1 an egg, it would be $12, honey.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
So the same guy that I was talking about earlier that took the two calves or the calf and the cow to the sale, the pair, he
mhm.
was saying that he stopped to get steaks on the way home, and he got two ribeyes, and he spent $38 for two ribeyes.
I don't know how anybody can afford it.
What it's crazy, and it seemed like 20 years ago, whenever I got out of high school, I was making $20 an hour, thereabouts anyway, and I did pretty good. But I don't $20 an hour in today's economy. I don't know that I mean, I'm sure you could figure out a way because on that pay, Nina was able to stay home with the kids, right? I mean,
That's
granted,
enough.
I worked. Yeah, I mean, I worked a lot of hours. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say that I didn't, but
Yeah.
at the same time, like I with two people making $20 an hour, you still wouldn't be able to you wouldn't be able to make it in today's time.
Nope.
Like, well, they say this next generation is the generation of the homeless. They'll never be able to afford to buy a house. They'll never be able to afford to buy property. So, like, I feel bad in a sense, but at the same time, I'm kind of glad that my wife and I purchased the property that we have because then my kids can put something here and then not have to worry about the land, right? The land is what's getting astronomical,
My
at least in
son,
our area.
my oldest son is looking at a place, him and his wife, right now here, and it's like 2.5 or 3 acres. The house was built in the '60s, and it's old. Don't get me wrong. The shop is only like 10 years old. Pretty nice, like 3 bay, insulated, finished out shop inside of it. But they want like 150,000 for that place. And I mean, we're talking when I say it's in the middle of nowhere, like it's 9, 10 miles of gravel, no matter what way you go. Like
Yeah.
middle of nowhere.
Well,
There's not even you know.
that's my kind of living though.
Well, it's
But a
mine
lot of
too.
people don't. A lot. So you see these housing prices like around my area and around yours. I'm sure, like in the so
In
like
town, they're
the
like
more.
three and $400,000. I'm like, and that's just a postage stamp yard and a 1,600, 1,800 square foot house. I'm like, are you like
Well,
high?
Well, they say that so the average, yeah, right. The average price to buy a home in the United States is $450,000 right now. That's the average. Granted, there's obviously going to be some lower and way higher, but 400,000, like, you know how much a payment is on that?
It's ridiculous.
I'm
I mean, on a 30-year note, like 80% of your income for the next 30 years will go to the house payment.
what?
That makes no sense.
Well, yeah.
On what average wage is for here. Now, do not get me wrong. Our area, we have extremely low average wage here. Like the whole $20 an hour, that is a extremely good paying job for this area.
Well, and I think that's everywhere because the average income for so Payne County, the county that we don't live there, but we're right beside it, we're adjacent. The average income for a single person is $27,000 a year.
Yep.
So,
And they say anything under 50,000 for a couple, no kids, just a couple, is considered poverty.
well, yeah, it's
There's a lot of people in this count in the Bourbon County and that area, they don't make 50,000. Some of them may not make 50,000 in 2 years. Like it's 25,000 for a couple.
well,
That's their annual salary.
yeah. I mean, and then like the people that everybody thinks of like fast food as being like a high school job. Well, at least I say that. That's the way I look at it. I look at it as like that's a high school. You're getting started with your life, haven't quite figured it out, so you're doing that. Which I'm not saying that it's not a bad life for like management and stuff like that. That's not what I'm saying. But
Yeah.
people get stuck in that rut, and I know a person that I graduated with. I know is still working in the fast food industry and he's not management or anything. And it's like, how how is this possible? Like, how is it possible? And he drives a really nice car, lives in a decent house. It's like I, I'm
He's living in
I'm
debt.
not well, yeah, but at some point debt catches up with you. You got to pay it.
At some point,
So
you got to pay some stuff off. And
yeah,
that is, unfortunately, that's what our society has got to. And, what upsets me is a lot of people want to start talking about the cost of schools, what it costs them in taxes or whatever and stuff like that. Do you know teachers in general and instructors, they're like the lowest paid profession. Like, um, for me to be a teacher, like what you were talking about, out of college, in the skill that I'm teaching. Sup, Gary?
that's what I
Um,
was trying to figure out. I was trying to figure out how to put it up on the deal, but I just figured it out.
Yep. But I literally make half of what I could make when I went back into the industry. And like my wife is a cook, so you start talking about food in the K through 12. If you started saying that they were cutting corners in the cafeteria or whatever, people's hair would catch on fire when you start talking about feeding their children. Like they're going to get very. But I'm telling you, like they don't understand what a food service person makes at a high school or an elementary.
Well,
Like
right.
we're
You
talking,
know,
they don't even clear 1,000 a month.
right. I do know that my sister worked, so she was in the at the school where the kids go. She was a cafeteria person, and Nina would fill in sometimes if they were short staffed or something. Nina would go up there and help them. I agree that so the teachers' salaries are low across the board, but there's some that are overpaid. That, in my opinion, Gabe, stop. He's acting like Thumper over here. But so, and the reason why I say that is because we're entrusting the teachers to mold the kids to be the next leaders of
Yeah.
society, right? And they're with teachers more so than they are with their parents in most cases. And then a lot of parents want to not, I don't think parents per se complain about it, but they maybe not stand up for them as much as they probably should.
Or,
Um,
one of the hardest things for me to learn, and this made me still in thunder from what you were alluding to earlier, but one of the hardest things for me to accept as an instructor is, so as a teacher or an instructor, you're contracted, and your contract is for, or at the college level, is you get paid essentially by the credit hour.
mhm.
So, like, I'm going to give you an example. I teach a 3 credit hour class. Now, from someone coming from the industry, that mean if I told you that I was going to pay you to teach for 3 hours, you would go, okay, so I'm going to teach for 3 hours and you're going to pay me X amount that I can figure per hour. No, that's 3 credit hour class, which means I have to have face to face time of 1,175 minutes per day for 16 weeks.
Yeah.
That's for 1 credit hour. So you're talking, 3,300 minimum minutes per day that I have to be with them. Plus, I have that same amount of time to do all my preparation and grading and everything else. So all of a sudden, we're talking about 6,600 minutes per week is, you know, for that one class. Well, that's just one class. I teach 5 classes in one week, but I'm only paid for 3 hours of that work. So
Right.
when you start figuring it up that way, I'm below national minimum wage. You follow what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Well, yeah, because you're still required to be there for X amount of time too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. This isn't what I was wanting. This isn't exact.
So
This
so yes,
this
you're
isn't
exactly
the
right. I have to be there 32 hours at minimum every week. Minimum.
right, and you're only paid for 3 hours a day
Yeah.
of
If I only taught
of
the one class, I get paid for 3 hours.
right.
So when you start figuring it up that way, like we, you know, public wants to talk about that our children are deprived of their educate, or they don't achieve the highest level of test scores or whatever.
Well, yeah, but a lot of that goes back to the parents. The
Yeah.
like how many of those little reels and shorts do you see of someone asking somebody, why do we celebrate the 4th of July, or when is President's Day or something? The times that the kids aren't in school, like what's the purpose of Independence Day? You ask them, that falls back on the parents to tell the kids why we're celebrating the 4th of July, like because they're not in school during that time.
I said
So
that I said the other day, I was like, did you watch when they were during election time, they always go to like some big city like New York or LA or whatever, uh, Denver, you name it, Orlando, and they walk down the street and they're like, ask people, who's the president currently? and they'd be like, Bill Clinton,
Yeah,
Bush. I'm like,
it's
do you like
well,
live with your head in the sand like an ostrich? Like, how do you not know who the president is currently?
well.
You know,
I honestly think some people. I don't know that. I just don't think that they care until
they want to blame
somebody's.
somebody.
Yeah, they just want something to complain about. In
Yeah,
social studies, yes, they should. But my problem with so I can only speak about the school that my kids go to, and that's the school that I went to, right? My kids go to the same school that I graduated from, and I started there in sixth grade. And I had some really great teachers,
hi Tina and Eric.
like really great teachers. Um, like they made school fun to learn and everything. But today's teachers, they act like it's a burden when the kids ask them questions or not. So in a small school where my son is going, he's got a government class, and his teacher is pretty, we'll say, left leaning,
Yep.
and you wouldn't think of that in the little bitty school where my kids go to school at, because there's so many. You're in a very rural community of
Rural area. Yep.
agriculture community where most people are not going to think the same way, right? And I'm
Right.
not saying it's a bad thing. Everybody, to be able to overcome some of the situations that we have in society, you need to be able to conversate about them in a respectful way in
Yep.
order to be able to overcome them, right? Whether you're right or you're wrong, you need to be able to have that conversation. And I think it's a very open discussion class from the way that I take it. But at the same sense, once it gets the kids prove their point that and like show the documentation, because he makes them show like where they're getting their information from, and the kids show them that they're right. He gets very butthurt about it.
Yeah. I was getting ready to
Uh,
say.
so, but it wasn't like that whenever I was a kid. If you had a different opinion, like the teacher would sit down with you and be like, not necessarily you as a whole or as a one person, but as a class, and be like, okay, this is what you think, and here's some of the facts about it. So come up with a good conclusion with the facts. And now it's just like, well, he's a criminal. He has so the one that really got me was Landon came home and said, well, Trump's a convicted felon. I said, well, civil cases are not felony cases. I said, you got to have that. You got to get that figured out. So there's a huge
Yep.
difference between a civil case and a felony case. And then Landon went back and he talked to his instructor or his teacher, and his teacher's like, oh, well, technically you're right. How are you zooming?
My new webcam.
Oh, look at you, all fancy. But
I can change other things.
I will say though, I think that the kids are home. That I don't think that the teachers, not all of them, because there are still some, have the enthusiasm that I had with my teachers. I'm not saying they're all like that. I'm sure there are still several that love to teach, love to mold the kids and stuff. But I think overall, it seems like
I think, yeah, I think you're exactly right. Like Lisa was just talking to me on the other side of the room. She was listening in, and like she said, like our youngest son during 2020, the last election, and when we all had to be Mr.
yeah,
Wilson, you know, masked, they were encouraging students to make it um them their their own. Speak creative about it and everything. Well, our son went to school and he had, at that time, that was Trump, of course. He had Trump on his mask.
It said "Make America Great Again."
It didn't even say Trump. It just said
2020.
"Make America Great Again" was all it said. No, like it didn't say a political party or anything. And all the rest of the school was perfectly fine. One class, one teacher that was a extremist, I would say, against the Republican Party, told him he wasn't allowed to wear something like that. So he goes to the principal. My son did. The principal said, "Yes, you can wear that. That has no affiliation." Goes back. That teacher refused to even let him in the room and told him unless he come back with something else, he would never be allowed back in his classroom. And he would see to it that he flunked that class. We finally had to go to the school board over it.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. It really is. You would think anything that said "Make America Great," whether you're whatever party you're on, like everybody should support that, right?
Exactly.
Like,
Exactly.
I like what signal virtuing are you trying to do when you think that "Make America Great's" a bad term?
Well, his best friend, his was just an American flag. Did the same thing with him because he had an
But
American flag.
if it was the alphabet deal on their face, they'd be completely fine with it.
Bingo.
And huh?
Bingo.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, and that to me that's a problem. Like, and I don't care if you. I don't think you should be using, like, if a kid wants to wear it, the kid chooses to wear it. That's fine, but I don't think that you should virtue signal with your kids, right? Like the odds of having a gay kid, I don't remember what it is, or however you want to say it, it's like 100,000 to 1, right?
Mhm.
But then there's there's some people that have 3. It's like, what are the odds? Like, unless you're teaching that to somebody, and I'm probably going to get in trouble for saying something like that.
I'm gonna stay away from that subject, but we can discuss that later.
Yeah, but I mean, it's true. Like,
It is.
you're
And
but
Gary,
anyway,
I see what you're saying there in the chat about sue the teacher, sue the school. Make sure that we don't have to worry about it. He's not going to teach again. He gone.
well, like Turning Point USA is a good thing for situations just like you were saying with your youngest. And that's what I was telling Landon. I said, if you keep getting problems, I mean, Turning Point USA is a good resource for parents
Yep.
and kids when you have somebody because you have to be non-biased teaching with the kids so they can form an opinion. And kids are like, I'm going to say this, and I don't mean it derogatory, but kids are like women. If you tell them no, they're going to do the opposite just to irritate the crap out of you.
Yeah. Well, like, and you're touching on the exact point that as a teacher, my students should not even know what my political beliefs or affiliation even is.
Well, I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing.
It's not my job to influence.
No, I agree with that, but at the same time, I don't think so. Like when we were in school, our teachers wouldn't have not told us, but they would have also been like, you need to do some soul searching and figure out what you want to believe in. Yeah, well, you got to figure out what you want to believe in, so then your political views align with your beliefs, right? Like, it's very hard for me to agree with something that about like abortion, for instance. Like, I can't get behind that.
Nope.
But I'm not gonna make you feel bad if that's what you believe in either.
Bingo.
Like, all I can do is tell you my views on it.
Yeah. I can just, yeah. But I'm also not going to single somebody out. So that's me. I walk a very distinct line in the classroom.
Yeah.
I want people to be able to express themselves, be themselves, but I'm also not going to let somebody speak derogatory about someone else, or the way they are,
Yeah. Well, that's my biggest thing is, whoa.
I'm playing with that.
Um, like I wouldn't let someone pick on somebody because they believed a certain way. That's what I was trying to get at earlier. Like
Yeah.
I can only tell you my political beliefs and why I believe that way. It's not mm, it's not my place to say that you're wrong or you're right or you
Bingo.
should do it my way. I can only tell you the way I believe and why I believe that way. And
Yeah.
I think you have a lot. We've talked outside of YouTube. Like, we have a lot of same views on things, and a lot of that comes back to faith, right? I mean,
Bingo.
so well,
I'm trying to
Dale.
get. Well, Gary, it's funny that you say that because that's my 6 o'clock time every Sunday. I do a devotional every Sunday, and that is biblical. What Gary's saying there: raise up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. It all goes
What?
back to what kind of parenting is being done at home. You know.
Well, and another thing that so we were talking about some stuff at work the other day, and a friend of mine said, "Well, when his kid's 18, he's out of his house." And I'm thinking to myself, that seems kind of backwards. I'm here to support my kids. Now, if I'm not going to say, like, if he wants to move out, he's out. I don't think that at all. But at the same time, he's always got a home to come back to, or to come. Like, if he's hungry, he can always come home and eat. Mom and dad will always take him, or the girls for that matter. Like, we'll always make sure you have eaten somewhere,
Yep.
shelter over your head.
But also, it's
And
not my job for them to be 30 years old, sitting on the couch playing video games,
well,
not having a job.
that's a completely different scenario, and I agree with it. Yes.
A lot of these trolls that come in on some of these lives, as I call them, the couch sitting, booger picking, mom, where's the meatloaves?
Yeah.
I mean, it's just they don't have a real life. They don't understand how the real world works. Mommy and daddy's still giving them everything under the sun. They just don't get it.
Yeah.
The best thing,
It's
and I hate it that my youngest, has moved clear across the country away from me, um, to a place where he has not he didn't know anybody, no family, no friends, no nothing. But at the same time, it was the best thing that could have ever happened to the young man.
He grew up.
He has grew up. He knows how to do his own bills. He knows how to take care of his own self. He went and found a job, and almost immediately, and and
well,
um,
and
has
sometimes that's what's needed for a kid to really grow up. Like,
I'm a firm
I
believer that kids should not go to the local college. And I know somebody is going to watch this and go, "Well, now wait a minute. You're telling people not to come to where you teach at." I'm not saying that.
right, right. I know what you're saying.
I'm a
They
firm
need to
believer, even
spread
if
their
they go to
wings.
the local one, you need to go live in student housing, or you need to go get an apartment, or you need to
Actually be out on your
actually be out on your own.
Yeah.
There's I as an educator in higher or second, you know, higher education, or should you say post-secondary schooling, I have seen in my 7 years I've been there, I have seen the maturity level of this generation just tumble. The the students now that we see are like a junior high maturity level. They
Well,
have
and I think
mommy and daddy do everything. They can't function because mom and dad aren't doing it for them. They don't know, they cannot handle. They can't handle pressure put on them. They can't handle. They don't know how to study. They don't know things along that line.
well, and I think a lot of that is
So,
a parenting issue more than anything. You gotta let your kids learn things the hard way. Not all the time, but like Landon, right now he's 17. He called me today. He's like, "Dad, I can't find my wallet." Well, okay, these are the steps that you need to take. I'm not going to do them for you. You have I'm on his bank account, right? But he has his own bank account. So you can get on your phone, go to the app, stop your card, go to your Cash app, stop the card so no one can use it, right? Like
mhm.
yes, maybe not all problem solving should be left to the kids to do, but at the same time, these are teaching moments. This is how I'm teaching you. Like if one of my kids are failing their class, I'm not going to do the work for them, and I'm not going to reward them with extra stuff throughout,
Bingo.
like going to a motocross race or something. We're not going to do that because you're failing your class. It's your class. It's not my class. I already did that work.
Yep.
Snowplow parenting. Yeah, that's
I've never heard of it snowplow. I've heard a lot of helicopter is what we call it, but um, you know, that's one
I.
reason why I
It,
love the college side, because unless mom and dad's name is on, everyone knows what HIPAA means, right? You can't
yeah,
discuss someone's, medical history with someone else unless they have signed a release. There's the same thing in college called FERPA, and
yeah,
that means by law, junior is in my class, and mom and dad call up, hey, what's junior's grade? Hey, can we talk about junior's grade? Or actually, is junior coming to class? Unless junior's put mom and dad's name on this FERPA, this release, I can't tell you a thing.
right.
And
Eh,
I get a lot of that. I get a lot of, well, I want to talk about, you know, Johnny or Susie's class and grade and stuff like that. And I'll just hold on, look it up. I'm sorry. You probably need to talk to Johnny or Susie.
Yeah. Well,
Well, what do you mean? I'm their parent. I'm paying the bill. Then you definitely need to talk to Johnny or Susie, because your name's not on there, you know. But I actually like that,
so
because, and even if their name is on it, my answer back is, when this conversation is initiated by Johnny and they include you in with this conversation, we're done talking. They
yeah.
have to be present, initiate it, everything.
So what kind of to go with what Gary's saying here. So a guy told me the other day, I think I read it somewhere the other day. So to become so we had this conversation after I read it. I was actually looking for something. Um so a lot of these young boys are saying that I'm a man. So I started reading something, like the definition of it and whatnot, and somebody said that you can't become a man until you can learn how to overcome diversity
I agree.
or hardship. Like that's what truly distinguishes you from being to becoming a man is what the article said. I don't remember where I read it at, but it was very interesting. So I kind of said that to Landon because he said, I'm 17, I'm a man. It's like, no, you're not a man. You're still a boy. And he's like, well, what's the difference? And I told him kind of what I told you. And after I said that to him, it's like something clicked in his head. It's like diversity. I was like, yeah, I try to teach you this diversity deal. So he needed new tires for his car. And I don't drive his car. I told him I would pay half of what it cost for his tires just because, he's a kid. So I'll pay half, whatever half is. That's what mom and dad will pay. So my wife was on me about buying his tires. And I said, I'm not buying his tires because I told him once he comes up with half his money, then I'll buy his tires. So he was working for a guy and he got the money. Well, then someone gave him money to offset his spending the money, right? So there was no diversity or hardship to learn there because you still had all the money that you saved to buy your tires. Well, he didn't learn a lesson that way. And then
Right.
I got criticized for it. It's like, no, I tried to teach him a lesson and someone wanted to give him money to offset it. So there's no lesson learned.
And that's
It
where
wasn't my wife.
so
It wasn't.
I wouldn't pay. My wife and I, we didn't pay for the kids' insurance. We didn't pay to put tags or taxes on their vehicles. In fact, I made them buy their own vehicle
Yeah.
because if you work for it and you bought it yourself,
You appreciate it more.
you're going to appreciate it, and you're not going to go out there and just tear it up because mom and dad's going to buy me another one.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of the same way when my daughter, before she could drive, I made her check her own oil, change her own wiper blade,
Change a tire.
jack the vehicle up, take off a tire, and put the spare on it, and let
Yeah.
it back down, and then jack it back up, take back off that spare, and put the tire and wheel back on. Because, like I told my daughter, who was 14 at the time, I said, you're not going to depend on some creepy dude to stop along the side of the road and help you. You, if you're going to drive it, are going to do it yourself. And now, don't get me wrong, not all are cut out of the same cloth, but my daughter, she watched
Well,
me work on stuff. She helped me, and so
everybody can do it.
yeah, when her
Every
husband was putting brakes on their vehicle, she's like, no, that's not how you do that. He's like, well, I don't really know. And she's like, well, I do because I watched my dad. This is how you do it. She didn't have to do it, but she was there to help her husband in their relationship work on it together, Now he does it.
Yeah.
But he's just never been, taught that kind of thing himself,
Well, right. So, like teaching your kids, like Gary was saying, real life skills is important. And if there's a will, there's a way. Like if
That's right.
my middle daughter, like my youngest daughter, she's strong, probably one of the strongest kid that her age. Could she pick up a tire and put it on there? Absolutely. Emma is just a brute strong. But Ava, you're gonna have to give her a tire spoon or a pry bar to get the tire to line up on there, and it's all. So if you want to do it, you can. It's like me and you putting on a big tractor tire. We're not just gonna manhandle that big old 6 foot tall tractor tire and get it on there. You have to figure out how to do it safely.
I used to do things like that, but that's now when I get up out of a chair, I go, oh,
Yeah.
I get like halfway up, Um, then you learn how to do things the smart way. But
Or like all
yeah,
the old men used to tell us to do to begin with. You know,
exactly.
there's a forklift over there.
But we and it's not just mechanical things. Like,
No, no.
one of the things that my daughter and I did, and then it passed down to my sons later, was, me. I do a lot of the shopping, you know, um, and I would take my daughter with me to go grocery shopping. Well, we got into budgeting and stuff like that years ago when the kids were little.
It's like a game.
Well, it become a game between her and I, was how
Yeah.
much stuff could we get for X amount of money? We would be she would be 3 days ahead of time. She'd be in the sale flyers, and she would be like, you know, finding sales so that we would feed our whole family on like $100 a month between what we
Yeah.
grew and what we bought at the grocery store. Well,
Well,
that
you know that
just moved on. Now her family, that's the way she operates in her family. They
well
budget.
there's a lot to be said, and I'm not saying it bad, but there's a lot to be said about growing up poor, right? Like
There is.
there's a huge difference between how my kids are raised and how I was raised. And I'd like to say, oh, it's for the better of them, but then I sat back and see some of the stuff they do, and my if my kids want something, like my wife's like hopping up, well, let's go do it, right? And whenever I was a kid, it was like, well, you're gonna have to wait, or you're gonna have to sit. Like the first dirt bike I got, like I worked 2 summers to buy a dirt bike, uh, and I probably had enough money the first 2 months of the first summer to buy it. But my mom needed something, or my sisters needed something,
Yep.
and everybody kind of chipped in to make it work. And then you know it's not the same now. It's well, at least it's not for me, right? It's not the same for me. And I'm not saying that it's a bad thing. I'm saying you have to learn to manage it.
Yep.
Like you got to learn to tell the kids no.
Well, and it goes into more than that. Like, you have to teach your children how to manage their time. That what they
Well, yeah,
invest their time into. Okay, it goes to what I am going to labor on. If that's the garden, the fruits of my labor will be proven. I will
right.
have, you know, I will end up with vegetables. If my labor or my time is spent vegging out to the TV or a video game, well, the fact nothing got done and I did nothing but vegged out to the TV and the video game are the fruits of my labor, you
Well,
know?
right. So there's a I don't remember who it was that said it, but if you spend 30 minutes a day learning something different for a skill that you want to achieve or have, you're more likely to succeed in that skill or trade. What whether it is a skilled trade or you are learning something about programming. But if you just spend 30 minutes a day learning something, you're investing that time in yourself. Now you
Yep.
can't do that by playing video games, which there's
Nope.
some case studies, which is kind of counterintuitive to what we're saying. But it's like surgeons. Did you know a surgeon is I think it's like 55% more likely to be better if they play video games because the dexterity of their hands.
The dexterity of their hand. I could see that because of the
That's
dexterity of their
yeah.
hands. The only problem with that is they have to regulate that between education on that.
Well, right, and you can't do that by playing COD.
Bingo.
Uh,
Uh,
but
it's the same thing with me and like the profession that I teach people. Like when I go to a recruiting event, I'm like, "What kind of game you like playing on your phone?" This is like my and they're if they tell me like it's an unblock me or mahjong, or I don't know if I pronounced that right,
Right.
but a puzzle solving game, something that takes deductive reasoning skills and solving a puzzle, that's the person for my career choice,
Well,
because
it's interesting.
they have to solve a problem.
What it's interesting you say that because there's actually quite a few case studies on deductive reasoning and problem solving skills being your high trade or skilled trade labor, right?
Yep.
So, like guys, so one of my interview questions when I interview somebody is, do they like to play chess?
Yep.
And everybody kind of looks at me like, "Well, what do you mean playing chess? Like playing chess?" And I'm not picking on anybody. If you don't know something, that doesn't make you stupid. That just makes you're just unaware,
Uneducated.
right?
Yep.
Right. So, like, my wife cannot play chess. That doesn't make her a stupid person. But Landon he can't beat me in chess, but he's pretty good at it. He's got really good problem solving skills because I don't play the same way every time because Landon has a very specific ways he plays, so you can manipulate him pretty easy.
Yeah.
But
Well, but that. Yeah, it
it's
goes.
experience.
It's
It's
experience,
experience,
and it's a 7-step diagnosis. You
right?
have to know it. Then you have to actually see the problem. Um, you have to research the problem. Then you have to come to a conclusion. You have to test your conclusion, and then if that test of the conclusion, you're either going to solve the problem or you're going to repeat to come up with another. You know.
What in like everybody problem solve different, right? I know you probably try to teach people to problem solve a certain way, but it doesn't work that way for everybody. You know that being an instructor. But when you try to teach somebody, I problem solve completely different than everybody I work with. Um, Everybody either starts at the beginning or starts at the end. I don't do that. I start in the middle. And I start in the middle because I work on huge machines. Like most of these machines are 100-foot long, right? And you
Mhm.
have multiple VFDs, controlling motors, and potentiometers, dancers, and everything. So if I'm working on a problem, I start in the middle. I know based on experience, if I test for voltage at here and I'm moving a dancer, for instance, something that's speeding up or slowing down the motor, if I can test voltage there, that tells me that I either got it there and I need to go to the VFD next, or I need to go back to the initial cause of it. But that's a lot of experience. It's 20 years of experience to get there.
Well, that's
I
basic
know.
CAN bus diagnosis, in my opinion. It's the same way that I teach people on a circuit how to use available volt test on a direct current system, or a voltage drop test are the only two tests they need. They're like,
Yeah.
well, I need to ohm this out, and I'm like, no, you don't. You don't have to do that,
Right.
because you're
But
gonna
but
you're either
that's
gonna
years
have
of
voltage
experience.
that's required, or if you do a voltage drop and your voltage is incorrect one way or the other, that's going to tell you. If you do an
Right.
available voltage test and there's no voltage there, that means that you're not getting voltage to that point. So it's either an open, or something else has used that voltage up before it got to that point. You know.
Right. Well, in a lot of it, in my so
If
whenever
we're
I'm
talking about
teaching
single
young,
phase, you're dealing with
no,
AC, with DC. You
no,
know.
we do it with both AC and DC. So
Oh, okay.
we deal with a lot. I deal with a lot of DC. Um, but so of the VFD, it gets 480, and then it
Yes.
converts it to DC or AC, just depending on the type of motor that you have to do
Mhm.
you're dealing with. But a lot of times if you let someone learn something the hard way, they'll remember it easier. And so
I
if that lets
intentionally send people down the rabbit hole a lot.
yeah, and I do the same thing, and you have to let them. Oh well, you and I know that. Well, you may not need to own something, or you may not need to check for a specific a current draw or whatever the case
Yeah.
may be. We may know that, but if I just tell them the answer every time, then they're going to get used to me telling them the answer, and they're not learning anything.
That's currently the problem we're into is we have a whole generation now that if they couldn't figure out the answer, it was just given to them,
Well, and what's crazy is
or they just passed them along anyway.
well, and
They didn't experience failure.
and what's crazy for you and I, we have it's easier to troubleshoot today than it was whenever I learned, and
Yeah,
not because of equipment like test equipment, because I have a computer that used to take the whole size of my house. I can carry it around in my pocket. I can look it up on YouTube. I can look it up on Google. I can look it up. There's so many resources available today than there was whenever I was starting out troubleshooting.
well, the one that kills me is like, hey, Dakota and Shayla, is like now a new tractor, I can sit right in the seat, pull it up on the screen in there, and I can check my voltages at this point or that point or that point. I can check, whether a switch is open or closed just from that screen, where that used to be I was walking around the tractor with a multimeter in my hand, checking each and every one of those. I can look at it on the screen and go, okay, this is what the voltage is there. This is what the voltage is there. Oh, that voltage was supposed to be 5 volts.
Right.
It's only 3.
And like you remember,
There's a high resistance in here.
you remember like the
Yeah.
Haynes manuals, right? Like
Oh yeah.
so like Haynes manuals would tell you test points and stuff to test. So if you weren't getting your ignition coil wasn't firing, you could read the Haynes manual and it would tell you different test points to go test connection whatever and see if you have something there. And if you don't have it there, then go to the next connection and test it here. And there's still resources like that, but it's like everybody just wants the answer. They don't want to have to look at
Bingo.
like 15 seconds. Like it's like the whole uh social media platform. It if it doesn't entertain you in 15 seconds, you're not going to keep watching it.
That's right.
It- it-
That's the reason why that's the reason why shorts that are highly successful are 10 seconds or less.
Yeah, unless you already have a huge following, right? So that there's a little misnomer,
Or it keeps you tied in because it is a
highly entertaining.
highly entertaining story that keeps you engaged.
Yeah,
If it is just a short, you don't have a large following. The average human's attention span now with TikTok, shorts, reels is 8 seconds. You have 8 seconds to keep their attention.
and and it leads the question of why, right? So we consume more information in an hour than previous generations would consume in their lifetime. Just based on
Bingo.
because we have so much stuff available to us. Like how many people do you know? Like I remember growing up, going to my grandma's house, and she would be sitting there reading a book for hours on end, right? How many people do you know that really read books? Not for self-entertainment purposes, not for
If I don't count those that I work with, very few.
right, but 30 years
You gotta
ago,
remember I work in education, so there's a lot of bookworms in education. You
right,
know what I
but
mean?
30 years ago, you could go in anyone's house and there's a stack of books on their coffee table
There's a
because
Reader's Digest. There's a,
yeah,
I tell people
popular
when
science.
yeah, when I was there at the end when I was at the dealership, people were like, "Well, we need the old the old school people. Well, we need to put an ad in the Farm Talk. We need to put an ad in Successful Farm. We need to put in all this print." And I would just flat, I hate to be this guy, but I'm like, why?
Yeah,
Why are
those
you
are
guys doing
dead.
that? And they're like, "Well, what do you mean? We need to put an advertisement in the paper." And a newspaper person was in the room when they said this. And I looked at him and said, "Why?" We're like, well, where else you going to put it? I named off 3 or 4 things. I said, "I'm going to be really honest. I'm a 45-year-old man, and I can't think the last time I probably read a paper, I was probably 15 because someone told me I was on the front page."
Yeah.
I said, "I've never read a paper. I don't even know where you could even get a paper." And I said, "I'm not the minority.
Right.
Like, I don't know anybody my age that sits down and reads a newspaper out of my close friends. Like, they couldn't tell you a clue
Yeah.
because that's not how we consume information.
Right. And
That's not how
and
we get our information.
like your field of study too. My most ag guys aren't going to young ag guys, they're not going to be doing that. And it's
No,
like my field of study, doing the programming, I have to keep up with the time. So there are outlets that send me, monthly updates of, oh, this new controllers can has this
yeah.
function that the previous generations didn't, right? So I have to stay on top of it. So there is some reading involved.
And don't get me wrong, there's always an anomaly in there.
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, but it's I think it's field of study. So like I can honestly tell you that my kids have probably never read a newspaper. Um, and I'm not saying that I sit and read the newspaper because I don't.
I got 3
Um,
kids. One out of the 3, he probably does read a newspaper because he's a nerd
eccentric.
and he's eccentric and he's a history buff, and that would just kind of be up his alley. The other 2,
Well, yeah.
they're not going to.
Well,
Like,
and it's kind of crazy because I would imagine that uh, Old Pecan Homestead, they said something about the AI is going to be the new generation's god. It's already that way, right?
oh
So
yeah.
in programming, you can go to Chat GPT and say, these are the parameters, or this is the function that I need. This is the software that I'm using. Write me a program. Um, it, it
Well,
it's
we have to watch this chat GPT and AI because in my segment in education, that is the new form of cheating.
100%.
Students, instead of doing the work themselves, they go to chat GPT and type in, say, the subject of the research paper that you want written and 1 or 2 key ideas, and it writes the whole paper for them.
Yeah, and you can do Chat GPT. I don't AI, whatever you want to call it. There's some flaws with
Oh
the
yes.
idea of the. So I'm sure some of the people that are developing AI have very genuine reasonings for it, right?
Yeah.
But there's probably some that are kind of nefarious too, right? Just based on human personalities.
Yeah,
Just my
definitely.
opinion.
Well, yeah. I mean, here's the deal: is it's big in post secondary education right now that um, plagiarism is at the world's highest it's ever been. because of tools like this, AI will work off of you give it a idea or a subject, it's going to pull from everything that's been put into it to compile that. So it's going to exactly copy and paste from someone else's term paper, article, whatever it can find on the internet, their research document that they uploaded. It's going to copy and paste those elements from that into that it generates for you, which is plagiarism.
Well, right, and there's another one. The photo math.
Yep.
Have you seen like photo math? Like I was sitting there wondering the other day. Landon was taking a picture of his math homework. I'm like, "What are you doing?" He's like, I'm doing my math." So, no, you're not doing your math. Your phone's doing your math,
Phone's doing the math. Bingo.
and there, it's like the like remembering formulas. Like everybody remember. Well, not I don't say everybody, but a lot of people remember. Um, like pi or Pythagorean theorem or like the things that we were forced to remember for
Yep.
math stuff when we were kids, and like now they don't have to know it because a lot of the schools don't even care that they use photo math.
Or they are, that there's more than one way. Say, let's use a hydraulic cylinder or a cylinder. If we're going to figure out the area of the piston in that 3-inch cylinder, one way of algebra based is going to teach you pi, but there's more than one way to get to the same answer, because you can also do that in simplified math. Take the diameter times 0.7853, and that will give it to you.
Right.
And so when I teach that in my hydraulics class, these kids, they get almost, locked up, drawn down, paralysis from analysis, because they were taught only one way.
Yeah.
And if you throw something different at them, they have no coping skills to cope with that.
Yeah. I think you know, and then people wonder why the U.S. doesn't lead the rest of the world on education.
Bingo.
Like, we're not even close to being at the top. We're the most incarcerated. Well, I guess now maybe uh what's that country in South America that just went in and detained everybody.
Oh, I don't know.
Anyway, Emma's using a kettle. I don't know if you can hear it whistling or
Yep,
not.
I just can now. Emma,
Uh,
are you making tea or something?
Probably coffee.
Oh, you mean gonna make coffee old school instead of with the old K cup or
Yeah,
anything like that?
yeah. That's what she really she likes it. How do you see how many people are in the deal?
There should be a little number at the top of your screen.
Oh, over on the where the plus sign is at?
Mm,
No.
are you on the phone or are you in there on your computer?
Oh no, I see it. The little eyeball. It says
Yeah,
2.
there's only 2 people in here.
Yeah. Well, I didn't. Was just a test to see how restream worked. I didn't put out that I was doing it, and
Yeah.
'cause you couldn't hear any of the audio on the video I recorded, so I was like, well, I'll just do a live stream.
Yeah. So I put out one a video yesterday about an auction, and I don't know. I haven't even looked since we've been to church and everything today. I haven't even looked and seen how I was doing. But I am gonna have to get off here so I can get ready um for my devotion. I gotta change some things in my live stream and stuff. But
Okay. Well, I
stream.
appreciate you hopping up here, Dale.
You bet,
But
man.
so I do have the deal about I want to talk about it's agriculture based, so it has you'll have
Reach
a
out to
broad
me.
knowledge of it. Yeah,
Yep.
I will, because I think I want to try to do it in a week or so, maybe two, maybe in the middle of the week or the end of a week or something.
Okay.
All right. Well, thanks for hopping up here. I'm going to go ahead and end the stream too. I just, like I said, this was just a test to
Yep.
figure out restream. Gonna go.
So all you gotta do is hit the leave button.
The leave or in stream?
In stream on yours.
Yeah.
Mine it says leave.
Oh, okay.
So I'm out of here.
All right. Thanks, Dale.
We'll
talk to you later.
All right. Talk to you later. Bye.
And for the people that came in, I appreciate it. And we'll catch you on the next one.